Menstrual cycle. On average, the menstrual cycle lasts for about a month, although it can vary from as little as 2 weeks to as long as 6 weeks in different individuals. In the middle of the cycle, ovulation occurs, which is the release of a mature egg or ovum. One function of the cycle is to control the development of the uterus lining so that if fertilization occurs, the lining is prepared to receive the fertilized egg. In the ovaries are hundreds of thousands of cells that have the potential to develop into eggs. Every month, under the influence of follicle stimulating hormone, one of these cells grows inside a hollow ball of cells called a follicle. In the middle of the month, the ripe follicle moves towards the outside of the ovary and bursts, releasing the egg. This is the movement of ovulation. The name of follicle stimulating hormone is derived from the fact that in the ovary, eggs develop inside a structure called a follicle. The follicle stimulating hormone is produced in pituitary gland, and this stimulates the growth of the follicles inside the ovary and maturation of eggs, and also stimulates the follicles to secrete estrogen. The luteinizing hormone is also produced in the pituitary gland, and this stimulates the ovulation and stimulates the growth of the corpus luteum. The estrogen is produced in the ovary, and this stimulates the repair and thickening of the uterus lining after menstruation, and also inhibits the follicle stimulating hormone production, preventing the ripening of more follicles in the ovary. Progesterone is produced in the corpus luteum in the ovary. This completes the thickening of the uterus lining, inhibits secretion of follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, and also prevents the menstruation following fertilization. Progesterone is important to be secreted when a woman is pregnant because the menstrual cycle has to be stopped as the fertilization. Meanwhile, a baby is born inside the uterus. This figure shows you the changes taking place during the menstrual cycle. The dashed line indicates the day of ovulation. While the follicle is growing, the lining of the uterus is repaired following menstruation. This is controlled by the hormone estrogen, which is secreted by the ovaries in response to rising level of follicle stimulating hormone. The lining increases in thickness, preparing it to receive a fertilized egg. In turn, estrogen inhibits or reduces the production of follicle stimulating hormone and increases the release of the second pituitary hormone known as luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone rises to a peak in the middle of the cycle, stimulating ovulation. When the egg is released, it enters the funnel of the oviduct and travels down the oviduct towards uterus. If the sexual intercourse has taken place, it is in the oviduct that sperms may meet the egg and result in fertilization. Under the control of luteinizing hormone, the empty follicle now forms a structure in the ovary called the corpus luteum. This secretes another hormone called progesterone. Progesterone causes the uterus lining to further thicken, and it becomes spongy with blood vessels ready to receive a fertilized egg. It also inhibits the secretion of follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone by the pituitary gland so that ovulation stops. If fertilization does take place, the corpus luteum remains in the ovary, secreting progesterone and ensuring that the thickened uterus lining is maintained. For example, there is no menstruation. When a woman notices that her monthly period has stopped, this is the first sign that she may be pregnant. Later on in pregnancy, an organ called the placenta secretes progesterone, taking over the role of the corpus luteum. All these changes are needed to prepare the uterus for pregnancy following fertilization. However, if fertilization does not happen, the corpus luteum breaks down and levels of progesterone fall. The lining of the uterus along with blood is then shed through the vagina during menstruation and the cycle begins again. When is sexual intercourse most likely to result in fertilization? For fertilization to take place, a sperm has to meet an egg in the oviduct. Ovulation takes place in the middle of the menstrual cycle, in a cycle lasting 4 weeks. This is most likely to happen at day 14, although it can occur 1 or 2 days either side of this. Both eggs and sperm can only live for a few days in a woman's body, so the most likely time that the intercourse will result in fertilization will be a few days either side of day 14. This is sometimes called the fertile phase of the cycle. During the rest of the cycle, sometimes called the infertile phase, sexual intercourse is less likely to result in pregnancy. During the periods of the female, they requires heavily the iron and other nutrients. The ovulation occurs on the 14th of day of menstruation, and the rest of the day the further growth of the uterus linings occurs and the development of blood supply